Hey everybody, this is American Nana, and I hope everybody is doing well. I've been working on some different videos, but there's a lot I didn't say regarding Karen Reed, and I still have a lot to say. And I said, yeah, I still have a lot of videos about that. And now I'm going down the Donald Adelson, and it's just not Donna Adelson; it is the whole family, it seems. So, but I'm going to get back on track with this one topic. It's been heavy, heavy on my mind. And I had been pretty much working towards trying to figure out how to make a video that mm, it's sensitive. It's very sensitive. The video is very sensitive because of the subject, okay? It's a sensitive video. This is not I'm not making this to be ugly or to cause any issues for people, but I and it bothered me back when the O'Keefes actually filed their civil suit. I mean, it's been bothering me ever since then. So, the civil lawsuit against Karen Reed, is it grief? Is it greed? Could it be guilt, for not I don't know, for not, uh, being there more for, John O'Keefe, for I don't understand. I don't understand. So today I'm gonna ask a question that I'm sure many people are afraid to ask, and that, I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for the fact that I'm gonna say this, but this is how I feel. Are the O'Keefe's family's wrongful death lawsuit against Karen Reed a pursuit of justice, or is it something far less noble? So, in this video, I'm going to give you why I believe the civil case is built on a foundation of contradiction, hidden motives, and perhaps worst of all, the evil to many things, greed. Let me be very clear that no matter my opinion about this entire situation, I don't take lightly that John O'Keefe is gone. I don't take that lightly. I don't take it lightly that he was um, most likely unalived by people inside that house, because there's just there is no other alternative. There is there Where would it be? Every bit of proof during the trial that was presented showed Karen Reed did not hit John O'Keefe with her car. Even the Commonwealth paying Aperture a $500,000, and they couldn't pull off a case by proving that he was hit by a vehicle. The reason they couldn't prove it, even though they paid a $500,000, is because you just can't prove something that did not actually happened. So the O'Keefe filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Karen Reed on paper. That sounds like grieving loved ones seeking accountability. And also trying to blame Karen Reed for every loss and every bad thing that has happened to their family. But if you dig into the details, cracks really will start to show. They claim that Karen acted with malice, with intent, and even cold-blooded disregard for his life, for their life. Yet the same family members know better than anyone else that the evidence presented in court was flimsy, contradictory, and in many cases, it was just outright lying going on in there. So today, their attorney went so far as to argue that Karen traumatized John's niece, Kaylee, and the claim that Karen woke Kaylee and told her John was dead, that a plow had hit him, or maybe she did. But really, here's the truth. We don't know what Karen said to Kaylee that night, do we? What we do know is that Karen Reed did not have Jim McCabe's phone number, but Kaylee did. We also know that just Karen Reed was most likely just in sheer panic. She was frantic. She wasn't thinking clearly because she knew something bad had to have happened to John because he didn't come home. And he knew his niece was home alone, basically, because at one point Karen had even called and said, I'm leaving or I'm going home. Excuse me. So what Karen did was she woke Kaylee in hopes that Kaylee would call Jen for her. That wasn't malice at all, and it wasn't cruelty. It was just simply desperation, and she couldn't figure out where in the world John was. So instead of showing any empathy for Karen Reed, the O'Keefes have weaponized this and they're twisting it into a frantic plea to help into a charge of emotional trauma and say that Karen caused all this. Meanwhile, has anyone considered what Karen herself has endured, which, in my opinion, is major emotional trauma? She was the one who found John's body. She was the one that was in a relationship with John. She was the one that helped take care of these children that for some reason have now been turned against her. She was the one that was worried because he didn't come home and went looking for him. And I just have to say, had she been the one to harm him and leave him in the manner that they state on purpose, the last thing she would do would be to get people to help her go look for him. But I'm just a nana, right? I mean, my common sense, nobody else could possibly have the same thoughts that I have. But then immediately upon finding John O'Keefe, you have Jen McCabe planting seeds of Karen Reed did it. It wasn't long after finding John O'Keefe that, they were able to concoct this story quickly, and in no time at all, Karen, who was never given any time to grieve, was being called a killer. Yet her suffering, the O'Keefes never acknowledged that whatsoever. With everything that I've heard about John O'Keefe, I can't believe that he would be standing behind any of this behavior. I just not from everything I've heard about him. So, another thing that became very apparent today in this civil litigation going on is we hear over and over and over how much the O'Keefe family has suffered, a- and sadly, how much these two children have suffered. And believe me, my heart breaks for these children. And to have lost their mother and then their father, to be loved and cared for by their uncle, and then to have lost him, I would think there should be a whole lot more focus on positivity and teaching them values in life and what doing the right thing is would be important. But as I said, I'm just a nana. So I saw today that their attorney never missed a chance to remind the court that the O'Keefes have buried two children and even their daughter's husband, and that Paul O'Keefe himself has buried his only siblings. And let's be clear, that pain is real. There's no way around that. There's there's no cutting that down to not important. There's I mean, that's horrible. No parent should ever have to bury a child, let alone two. No family should have to endure losing a son-in-law, not at any time, but much less right after their daughter and leaving two grandchildren with no parents. But then here's the truth, right? None of that is Karen's fault. None of the past situations that brought them so much pain and grief is Karen's fault. Their daughter passed away from brain cancer. And sadly, in the second trial against Karen Reed, a fact that I didn't know was that their son in law actually died from an overdose on his wife's grave. I mean, that's horrible. I don't know why the Commonwealth brought that fact out in the second trial, but personally, I could have gone without knowing that. I didn't need to know that. That didn't have anything to do with Karen Reed's case whatsoever, in my opinion. But They seem to think it did. And then sadly, Karen Reed is in fact guilty of driving John O'Keefe to the Alberts because he wanted to attend an after party. She didn't want to attend and she left him there. That, in fact, is what Karen Reed is guilty of. She just left him there. Okay? A 40-something-year-old man who wanted to continue drinking. His girlfriend gives him a ride to where he wants to go, and she left him there. So that's um that's the only thing that I find she did. So these are all, it's all heartbreaking tragedies, but trying to pin all of that grief onto Karen and then drag her through a civil trial. It's not gonna heal their wounds. It's not gonna change anything that has happened. It's not gonna erase the past. It's not gonna bring John back. And it's like they're just constantly in this world of absolute hate that isn't healthy for anyone. I mean, I understand how someone would want vengeance, how they would want justice, but in order to want or seek either of those things, one should have 100% proof positive that the person that they're going after, that the person that they're inflicting their pain on, that they're inflicting all of this pain on, she's already lost her job, lost her home, had no money. What what for? And it just seems like it's a sympathy pull. And we saw it throughout the murder trial, and we're seeing it again in the civil case. Okay, their suffering is real. There's no way to minimize their suffering, and they're entitled to those feelings. Who wouldn't be? But it's being used as a weapon, actually, in my opinion, to distract from the facts. And to what end? Because here's what the majority of the people who saw both trials already know, that there is no evidence proving Karen Reed did this. As a matter of fact, the evidence shows she not only did not do it, but she could not have done it because her car did not come in contact with John. So the prosecution's own case crumbled twice. The first time, we all know it was, just they want to claim that it wasn't, but we know that it was a not guilty. I don't care what the court, how they decided, but it was not guilty. And it was just a, major expensive issue to, and traumatic, I'm sure, continuation to have the second trial. But they brought in the big guns, Hank Brennan, who actually I personally think has no issue lying to the court. I mean, I would call most of what he did whenever he would bring things up. I don't really think that he misunderstood what he was saying I think he was misrepresenting facts the best he could. Now, does that fall in the realm of doing things legally? Apparently, in Massachusetts, it does. So I don't know. I just am in awe at some of the things that he tried to pull or say. But the jurors in the last trial that spoke out and said she wasn't just not guilty, but she was innocent. And they were asking the state to find who did it. Who killed John? Because it certainly wasn't Karen Reed. And then there's the claim that Karen authorized Aiden Carney, many people know him as Turtle Boy, to be what they say was an official spokesperson, a representative or something. I mean, n- I don't think that that has ever come out. And I think what she did was probably answer questions to the only journalist that seemed to have a question about what really happened. And just because you have mainstream media that don't have the cojones to stand up to these people in Massachusetts, well, Turtle Boy saw it as what it is, saw it as most of us see it. And it's not that Karen Reed turned anybody into anything. It's not that Turtle Boy influenced any opinions. A lot of people that are involved in the Karen Reed case, they didn't even know anything about the case until it went to trial. Sorry, I'll start coughing. And they watched the case unfold and the evidence, or as I kept saying, the lack thereof, come out. And that's where people formed their opinions. And if Turtle Boy claimed that the O'Keefe's time for grieving was over, I don't know that that's a fact, but let's say if he did say that, that's Turtle Boy saying it. Karen Reed never once told Turtle Boy word for word what to write. She may have answered questions, she may have provided some information to the journalist who inquired, because, as I said, no other journalist or reporter was asking, which I said during all the trials, why not? I don't get it. So, the hostage video that DA Morrissey put out? I mean, he essentially was declaring Karen Reed guilty and portraying the Alberts, the McCabe's, and everyone else as nothing more than innocent witnesses. And DA Morrissey put a lot of emphasis on Colin Albert, as he's referred to in by some attorneys. So I'll just say Colin because it sounds fitting. Anyway, they could do and say whatever they wanted, right? They could portray, and I mean, I have no idea what's out there. I didn't go looking for it. I wasn't looking at it then. But it just seems to me that they were okay while all that was going on. But as soon as someone started standing up for Karen Reed, all those people became victims. All of them. And they're still screaming they were victims, and they're still screaming they were harassed. Well, that's not justice. That's just a narrative control. So, here's another question. Did the O'Keefes even watch the same trial as the rest of us? Because the inconsistencies, the mishandling of evidence, the weak testimonies, I mean, let alone the fact it should have never gone to trial in the first place. And I mean, the ultimate insult. The second trial, they paid somebody. The DA's office got special permission to have special funding in which they hired Hank Brennan and in which they paid Aperture almost a $500,000, who literally painted themselves blue, stood behind a car, and insisted it prove Karen hit John. I mean, he even said right on the stand, not "That's my opinion," not "It seems to be," but "That's what happened." The same guy that said that a car could take off into outer space. That wasn't science at all. That was that how do you put it? That was getting their swing of things, their flip of what happened to be put out there, and they paid the bidder what they asked for. And the question still remains, did Aperture know? Did they have all the information they needed in order to come up with the correct result? I mean, from what we understood, I don't think they ever saw the X-ray. Was it given to them, or and they lied and said it wasn't? Or did the Commonwealth keep it from them? That we'll never know, because you can't believe either one. You can't believe Aperture, and you can't believe Hank Brennan. Well, you can't believe the Commonwealth. That much we've seen. So, that half a mil, I'm just gonna say half a mil, that $500,000 that was paid for a performance that was supposed to convince the jury that Karen Reed, in fact, hit John O'Keefe with her car, well, that was a flop because no truth at all was presented. No facts, no evidence at all was presented by the Commonwealth. So, after the first trial, they decided to come up with their civil lawsuit, which, okay, okay. But after the second trial, wouldn't you think they would have withdrawn that? Because this is a case that was staged narratives, courtroom theatrics, no truth, no facts. Anyway, the O'Keefe families obviously have a right to grieve. Everyone who suffers any loss has a right to grieve. And it does not mean that I take away their right to grieve or look down on them or their grief at all if I then say grief does not excuse greed, and grief does not excuse turning a blind eye to the truth. So, my question really is this civil case about grief or is it about greed? That's, that's that's what I can't figure out. Which one is it? Is it, I don't know. Maybe somebody else will know. Maybe somebody else can add their thought to that. And I'm not trying to be an ugly person. I'm not a I'm not an ugly person. And I have said over and over in many of my videos that I've done is I'm I'm so gobsmacked over all of it. How can you not be gobsmacked? I mean, there's so much more here. I guess I really expected for the O'Keefe family, at least after the second trial, to have just gone after the Commonwealth with full barrels of, "Are you kidding me? Have you people screwed up so badly that now we're never gonna have an answer? No one's ever gonna pay for what happened to him?" That's where I would be. And my husband, who doesn't even do cases, did watch part of the second case with me. And immediately, he knew it was just the biggest crock ever going. And I asked my husband, why then would his family pursue a suit against Karen Reed? Why? And I know that, this talk about the publicity and stuff. Well, you know what? It really is something that the public, in my opinion, now has the right to know. And the reason is because the Commonwealth is the reason for that. Because the Commonwealth has done such underhanded things that you have an entire world now watching, and we're all curious. Many of us, most of us, still want to know, is there a way to ever find justice for John O'Keefe? Now, I'm going to say personally, and especially after watching the Adelson case. Well, Dan Markel, actually. Dan Markel's murder. I can honestly say that I just lost my train of thought, that I have faith in the FBI. And the one thing during the trial that I did learn is if Hank Brennan told me, "Don't step on that red spot. It's really truly fire and you're gonna burn your foot," I would know it would be okay to step on the red spot because I don't think he said anything believable. And he was like a little baby throwing fits in the courtroom, and um, his behavior was just embarrassing. But I would think after the DA's office has spent, and this is just a second trial, we don't know what the first one cost. Of course, it wouldn't be too awful much because, um, they paid their own experts, if you wanna call them that. Well, except for the phone experts, and the phone experts, they were there to disprove, that's what's so funny, to disprove that Jen McCabe did the Google search, which everyone knows Jen McCabe did the Google search according to all the reports. But, they wanna say not. And the other thing is the McAlberts, they all did this sympathy tour afterwards, after court. And we know that the O'Keefes are very dear friends with the McAlberts, which the last thing I would ever do with anyone after they led me through all of the falsehoods that I've seen in this case is to be their friends. I wouldn't trust any of them, none of them. And I would think that I would think well, I know that I would've let's just pretend that at some point I could have believed in the case that the Commonwealth had, but I for sure on the second trial, absolute 0 belief in it, and I would be screaming to the top of my lungs. But the FBI, nobody knows what the FBI knows. Nobody knows what the FBI has. Nobody knows how far the FBI has been looking. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. What I do know is I understood the judge basically trying, hoping to get them to go to, like, mediation, and I mean no disrespect whatsoever, but those bars, if you listen to everyone that testified in the first and second trial, the bars clearly, um, they would be not guilty because everyone stated Karen Reed was not drunk, and, so that's a done deal once you get that all going. And then, Karen Reed has scientific proof that she didn't kill John O'Keefe. The ARCA guys are incredible. They're also extremely believable, and I think they're very respectable people. Now, I saw a lot of shady come on there from the from the Commonwealth. No, one would think that it's time to let this animosity, this hatred, the blaming of an innocent woman, just let it go. Being filled with so much hate that you're willing to actually overlook facts, that's a scary thing. That's a scary thing. So, those are my thoughts about the civil trial coming up, the civil case. But there's no way that Karen Reed would have ever done anything to purposefully cause harm or pain to John or those children. She's just not that kind of person. She's just not. And the fact that she's done interviews, who cares? Y'all tried to crucify an innocent woman. Y'all had no problem with what was going on there, did you? So I'm going to go now. I'll be back. But yeah, today was like just unbelievable. Just I keep thinking any day they're just going to drop it. Settle? Huh. Be a cold day and you know where before I would ever, ever agree to that family receiving money. Ever. And I'm sure that John O'Keefe had many things in place to care for the children if he did ever come to any harm. After all, he was a policeman. And you know that there's a quite a bit of money involved when you lose someone in law enforcement. And the children also receive money from the, their parents are deceased, so there's money that comes just from that. And I mean, other than just what you who's Paul hoping to retire, is that what it is? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I can't. I can't figure it out. Anyway, those were my last thoughts. So I hope you guys understand that I'm not saying this at all to be ugly. I'm just saying it because, quite frankly, I can't be the only one that feels this way. I just really can't. And I wish that life could just go on for Karen Reed and her family. But the bombshell that was dropped today, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I've been waiting for. Because no one should ever be able to treat an innocent woman in the manner she has been treated by the people in Camp Massachusetts, the DA, the Canton Police Department, the troopers were all involved. Yeah, it shouldn't have happened. I'm glad. I'm so glad that they're going after them because they should. That is one lawsuit that should be brought. So, at least there was something positive from today, right? Bye. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it.